What if I told you there was a Counter-Strike player that nobody wanted, but still ended up destroying everyone? A player so disrespected he was always the first to get benched, eventually backstabbed by his own countrymen, and even had his leadership questioned at every turn. Yes, I'm talking about Finnish legend AleksiB. But why and how did he still become one of the best in-game leaders in Counter-Strike history? To find out, we have to go all the way back to Vantaa, Finland in 2018. AleksiB is dominating the domestic Finnish circuit, lifting various local LAN trophies with Havu. The young in-game leader averaging a 1.18 rating did not go unnoticed. ENCE, recognized as the top Finnish organization in Counter-Strike, come calling. They aren't a global powerhouse, no real international footprint, a tier 2 team by all measures. But for AleksiB, this was the opportunity he had been waiting for. He immediately begins building something nobody outside Finland can yet see. His system is built on structure above all else. Every player locked into a defined role, every execute pre-planned and timed to the second. On paper, ENCE have no business competing at the top level. They are outgunned in nearly every matchup, a collection of underpowered domestic riflers going up against super teams. But AleksiB's tactical genius closes the gap. His deep prep and calling gave ENCE an edge in every veto, becoming one of the best teams on Train, Dust, and Mirage. The most consistent factor in every ENCE victory isn't any individual star player, it's AleksiB's system, and the team was beginning to climb up the world rankings. In October 2018, ENCE wins Star Series I-League Season 6, a $300,000 event against some of the top teams from across the globe. By early 2019, AleksiB's squad was an exciting up-and-coming team. Then came the result that solidified ENCE as a true contender. IM Katowice 2019, the first major of the year, the biggest stage in Counter-Strike. And walking into the arena was the first ever all-Finnish lineup to qualify for a major, led by a 21-year-old in-game leader who just spent 2 years grinding local tournaments. Nobody expected what came next. Through this Challenger stage, through the Legend stage, past NAVI, past Team Liquid, 5 Finnish players who were supposed to be just happy to be there go on a Cinderella run, reaching the grand final of the major. They face Astralis in the midst of their prime, so the final goes about as expected. But the 21-year-old IGL from Vantaa has just taken a tier 2 Finnish side to a major grand final in his first attempt. AleksiB becomes a fan favorite, and the whole scene is forced to take notice. And AleksiB was determined to prove this run wasn't just a fluke. He's immediately back in the server, reviewing the demos and studying Astralis. And 3 months later, he gets another shot at the king. May 11th, 2019, the grand final of Blast Pro Series Madrid. It's ENCE vs Astralis again, and the Danes flex a 31-game winning streak on their map pick of Nuke. Nobody gives ENCE a chance. But AleksiB's preparation is meticulous. He knows exactly what Glaive wants to do. ENCE wins 6 rounds in a row to open the map, shutting down Astralis' offense. The half ends 11-4 to ENCE, and they close the map off the back of Sergey's 1v2 clutch to snap Astralis' legendary streak on Nuke. And with another masterful CT side on Train, ENCE sweep the series to get revenge and become Blast Pro Series Madrid champions. By far the biggest win in AleksiB's career so far, a statement win against the Astralis dynasty, built on months of study and preparation after coming so close in Katowice. Finland has a top 5 team in the world, and its young IGL has just outwitted the best team in the game. Everything seemed to point to a bright future, but behind the scenes, something was already wrong, and the people closest to AleksiB were about to do something that would define the next 4 years of his career. In a shock move, AleksiB is set to be kicked from ENCE. That was the headline, August 23rd, 2019. And the timing makes it worse, because it drops on day 1 of the StarLadder Berlin Major, the biggest tournament of the year, just 6 months after AleksiB led this squad to the grand final of the previous major. His own countrymen, the very teammates he helped become household names, had gone behind his back and signed a replacement.
Here, oh, Sunny's joining, their in-game leader, AleksiB's out. Of course that doesn't seem like a positive thing. It isn't a positive, let's be honest. I've seen, AleksiB sitting in the lobby on his own, right? I don't know what the rest of the team's doing, but if it is a work environment, that's fine. He's a kid, he's 22 years of age. If you think being dropped from a team in a major isn't going to affect him at all, You're trying to tell me a lie that just isn't true. Of course he's going to be affected by that.
This verdict was delivered by people who were supposed to understand your contribution better than anyone. Despite this difficult situation, AleksiB was an ice-cold professional, and he led the team through to the playoffs with an impressive 3-0 run through the Legend stage. But ENCE were swiftly eliminated in the quarterfinals by Renegades 2-0. After the match, a photographer catches AleksiB alone in the practice room, just sitting with his emotions. The quiet end of the easy for ENCE era.
Even if this is the last time that we get to see you wear this jersey, you have gained fans for the rest of your career who will be supporting you. Any final words for them?
Just thanks to everyone here. Thank you.
Give it up one last time for AleksiB!
The moment they removed him, one question became absolutely unavoidable. Was ENCE the system, or was AleksiB? The question didn't have an answer yet. First, AleksiB needed somewhere to go. December 2019, AleksiB signed with OG, a Dota 2 organization making their very first move into Counter-Strike. No history in the game, no infrastructure, just AleksiB, a blank canvas, and full control of the identity. And then, not long after signing, OG drew ENCE at the ICE Challenger 2020, the highly anticipated revenge game versus old team. The players who had voted him out standing on the other side of the server, and AleksiB showed out, calling circles around his former squad, and OG 2-0'd the series with ease.
When you get kicked out of ENCE, which is realistically what happened, they actually told me themselves, like, they kind of like oversold the idea that you didn't do much in ENCE, like you were just calling some stuff and then maybe other people calling other stuff. Does this feel like some vindication as you as an IGL on this team?
Yeah, for sure, and I'm not exactly sure what they're talking about. I just want to say that 70% of the tactics that start straight from the spawn is like my tactics.
For a brief moment, that felt like justice, a clean, satisfying reversal. The tactician proving he didn't need the team needed him. But that revenge win was basically the peak. OG never built the kind of results that repositioned AleksiB in the tier 1 conversation. No major trophies, no deep runs that rewrote the story. Tournament after tournament, the results just never came, which left the uncomfortable question sitting there. Was the ENCE success just a fluke? Was he even a good IGL? Could he genuinely replicate what he had done at the highest level with an entirely different group of people? The doubt was real, and it was building. Some began to question whether anyone in Tier 1 Counter-Strike still believed he belonged there permanently. As it turned out, one organization did, and they handed him the most scrutinized roster he had ever been asked to lead. G2 calling AleksiB said something about his reputation. He had just come through a period at OG without a trophy to show for it. By any conventional read of his situation, his stock should be drifting downward, but instead he got an upgrade. G2 is an organization with championship aspirations, and the roster they handed AleksiB included Nico and m0NESY. If you don't know, Nico is perhaps the greatest rifler this game has produced, a true superstar who can take over a game from pure mechanical ability alone. And m0NESY, one of the most hyped prospects ever, was just signed for an astronomical $600,000. He was looked at as a generational talent, but was a rookie who hadn't played Tier 1 level Counter-Strike before. AleksiB's entire career had been constructed on punching up with lesser pieces. This meant heavy preparation and implementing a system that required micromanaging each player's moves. The stylistic differences were very clear. Nico historically had operated with substantial individual freedom. Fitting that profile into a role-disciplined tactical framework designed by some Tier 2 Finnish guy was gonna be a hard sell. Anyone who had ever had to manage someone more talented than themselves in any field knows the problem. The person who does not need the system is the hardest person to convince the system exists for a reason. Either Nico had to adapt or AleksiB had to compromise. And at the start, they made it work. At least partly. February 27th, 2022, G2 reached a grand final of IEM Katowice, a grueling 3-map affair against FaZe Clan featuring 6 total overtimes. Unfortunately, G2 falls short without a single map victory, and once again, AleksiB claims silver at Katowice. And from that peak, everything unravels. G2 underperform at the Antwerp Major, they crash out at IEM Cologne in the group stages, and it was clear AleksiB and the roster was just incompatible. He even later admits he couldn't get along with the management. His own calling became inconsistent under the pressure of a roster that expected more. And after just roughly 6 months, G2 move on from him. Now AleksiB looking for his 4th team in 3 years. The pattern wasn't a coincidence anymore, it was starting to look like a verdict.
AleksiB, your time on NIP does not count.
Ninjas in Pajamas, one of the most historic names in all of Counter-Strike. There's not much to say about it, which is almost the point. No defining moments, no upset run that changed the conversation, no result that rewrote the narrative. A good IGL on a team that couldn't deliver the environments his career needed. 4 years. That's how long it's been since AleksiB had lifted a trophy. Since that Blast Madrid stage in 2019, with the original Finnish roster that gave him notoriety. 4 years of leading international projects with some grand final appearances, but not one single trophy to show for it. And somewhere along the way, the narrative had quietly shifted. It wasn't AleksiB hasn't peaked yet, it was AleksiB already did. The consensus has hardened across forum threads, pundit takes, talent discussions. Decent tactician, but not good enough to win. A leader who gets the team to second place, to top 5, to the brink, but never over it. His run with ENCE was the ceiling. He's had enough chances now and hadn't been able to deliver. There was no obvious trajectory anymore. Just roster after roster, tournament to tournament, the same story playing out in slightly different colors. His career wasn't falling apart, it was doing something quieter and harder to come back from. It was drifting. Each team a little less exciting than the last. Each announcement carrying a little less weight. Then Counter-Strike 2 launched. A new engine, a new competitive era. A landscape reset that theoretically handed every player a clean slate. The game AleksiB had spent his career mastering was, in some sense, starting over. June 2023, Natus Vincere announced one of the most shocking rebuilds in modern Counter-Strike history. The famously Ukrainian org went fully international for the first time in their 16-year history. And their new IGL, the man chosen to lead NAVI into a new era, is AleksiB. The reaction lands somewhere between confused and dismissive. 4 kicks in 5 years, a resume that doesn't look pretty, and NAVI, built on years around Simple's individual brilliance, are handing him the keys. And the new roster compounds the confusion. They add JL, a tier 2 Lithuanian rifler, and ENCE, a Romanian fragger who went crazy at the Paris Major. Pair along with Ukrainian stars Bit and Simple. Then, in October 2023, the floor drops out entirely. Simple, 3-time HLTV #1, the greatest player of CSGO, announces he's stepping away from the game. AleksiB finds out only when he lands in Australia for a tournament. He is now leading a team that is missing its superstar Opper and replaced him with a young, inconsistent Opper in Wonderful. But something is different inside this team that the outside noise can't see. For the first time in his career, AleksiB has found a coach whose brain runs on the same frequency as his. Blade, Navi's legendary Ukrainian head coach, doesn't just understand AleksiB's system, he elevates it. 2 minds building in the same direction. Every map pool decision pressure tested, every opponent is anti-stratted and weaknesses exposed before every match. Navi's own coach sets the team's internal target for the upcoming major. Not to win, just top 4. Nobody believes in them, nobody is even watching, which means AleksiB has nothing to lose and everything to prove. March 2024, PGL Major to Copenhagen, the first CS2 Major in history. The favorites, team spirit, vitality, phase, every analyst, every betting market pointing towards teams built around established superstars. NAVI, with their experimental international lineup and their 4 times kicked IGL, outside odds to make even the semifinals. And immediately they look like they might prove everyone right. In the group stages, NAVI are struggling. AleksiB and ENCE post some of the lowest individual ratings in the entire tournament. They lose to Cloud9, they lose to Team Spirit, and they scrape through on a must-win against Pain Gaming, barely surviving into the playoff bracket. Online, the same narrative resurfaces word for word. He can't do it. He has never been good enough. Another team, another failure. Then the playoffs start, and something shifts. The system activates, his reads are timed perfectly, his rotations arrive around early. Every execute lands exactly where the opponent isn't expecting it. They dismantle Eternal Fire, then comes G2, m0NESY and Nico. The scene has always said AleksiB needed to compete, and AleksiB sends him home. His 6th win over G2 since they kicked him 18 months earlier. They make the grand final versus FaZe Clan. And across the server, Kerrigan, the IGO who had beaten AleksiB 13 times in their career head-to-head. The man who'd beaten him in the G2 Grand Final, the closest thing this story has to a final boss. Map 1, Ancient, FaZe's pick. AleksiB counters every read Kerrigan throws at him. NAVI take it 13-9. A Controlled victory, exactly the kind of win his whole career was built to produce. Then, FaZe bounced back and obliterate NAVI 13-2 on Mirage. Complete humiliation, and most teams would crumble after that. But not this one. Map 3, Inferno, one map, everything on the line. AleksiB calls a near-perfect CT side, not through firepower, through reads, through structure, through making FaZe walk directly into stacks every single time they try to force. The half ends 9-3, and by the time it's over, Kerrigan's final stat line on the decider is 1 kill and 15 deaths. 13-3, NAVI are major champions. And here's the stat that defines the entire run. Across the whole tournament, NAVI lost more rounds than they won. They scraped through the groups, they survived on the narrowest margins, and they got demolished on map 2 of the grand final, and they still raised the trophy.
What do you really feel? Screw AleksiB haters. Every single time you go into HLTV, AleksiB is the problem, AleksiB is losing the game. No, it doesn't happen like that.
A fluke, that was the word used to describe Aleksi's biggest career achievement. NAVI just got lucky. There's not enough firepower to sustain success. They'll end up dissolving into nothing like countless underdog major winners of years past. But AleksiB was gonna prove everyone wrong. Because what followed was not a fluke extended by luck, it was a statement delivered in installments across an entire year at every stage that mattered. NAVI didn't just stay relevant after Copenhagen. They became the first dominant team of the CS2 era. Tournament final after tournament final, the same system, the same structure, and the same IGL calling rounds while the rest of the world tried to figure out how to counter something they hadn't fully decoded. By the end of 2024, AleksiB had led NAVI to virtually every S-tier tournament final on the calendar. 4 S-tier trophies in 1 year. After 5 years of nothing, the same man who thought his career peaked in 2019, 5 years and 4 teams ago, is now a major champion and the captain of the best team in the world. And at the end of 2024, the industry made it official. AleksiB was the IGL of the year. The tactician who had built the first great team of the CS2 era from a weird international roster around a system everybody had spent years questioning, with a coach who finally gave it the infrastructure it always needed. The same man his countrymen voted out after a major final, who bounced from roster to roster for 5 years, who walked into Copenhagen as an afterthought, and left with a trophy the whole scene had pre-awarded to someone else. 4 teams showed him the door, the 5th one gave him a dynasty. And he's still here, still on NAVI, still calling, and still winning. The career everyone had quietly written off, the IGL who's already peaked, whose best days were behind him, turned out to have its best chapter still ahead of it. The story didn't end in Copenhagen, that was just where it finally started making sense.